Welcome to Dr Catherine Barrett, founder of the Kindness Pandemic Movement. So thanks so much for being part of this input today, part of our live stream. I've been following the Kindness Pandemic for a bit over a month now, and I'm just wondering if you wanted to explain to people what's it all about.
What it is, okay. So the Kindness Pandemic, I set it up on the 14th of March. And it was a response to a sequence of happenings on social media. And the first was news of COVID-19 and the devastation it was causing. And the second one was the responses of a small number of people around panic buying. And what I noted on social media, I had a number of events that had been cancelled on the 14th of March in the evening. And what I had noticed was people's anxiousness about it, and my own as well too, about what was happening, and people's calls for everyone to be kind to each other, and other people saying, well, this could be a turning point, we could be, we could turn our lives around, and that sense of that maybe we'd drifted from where we needed to be before COVID-19.
Looking for a new normal, as we talked about last week.
Yeah. And I think that's the point, Phil, that I think people were looking for a new normal. But my belief is that if you want a new normal, you have to create it. Like that we are all leaders. And when we recognise that, that's when we get off our backsides, and doing even just a small something can make an enormous difference. So what I decided to do was to set up a Facebook group to focus on acts of kindness, and invited 100 of my friends and family on social media to join the group. And, I think there were about 40 or so by the time I went to bed that night, and got up the next morning and there were 1,000 people had joined. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, 500,000 had joined. And what we realised when we got to 2 weeks, we realised because people didn't have to have their posts approved. It was anyone could post. And after 2 weeks, people were saying to me that they wanted to hear news stories, that, we were sort of stuck on stories of toilet paper, and people wanted to hear news stories. So there were two things that we did at that point. And one of them was moved to a focus on a new campaign every week or two, because we want to focus on intersectional kindness. And I could talk a bit more about that later on, but really kindness for everybody, and think about, new groups of people and who we needed to reach out to. And the other one was we also set up a process of local kindness pandemic groups, because we knew this was something that was working for people, and we thought it will work in much more powerful ways if people set up their own local groups. So we set up a template on our website. There's a page called Local, where people can go there and they can download, guides for setting up their own local group. And about 60 groups were set up, mostly Australia, but around the world, in the next week. And some of those groups have been incredibly powerful, because what they do is they don't just focus on acts of kindness, and their kindness is much more local. It's a call out in someone's suburb. I need help, or I can offer help. But also too, what it's done at that local level is people can provide information from local health services, or information about, the local bakery's now open. Or I saw on one of the groups the other day, people were providing updates from their local MP. So those local groups have really, I think, are really where the power of this sits.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly transformed my Facebook feed. I've really enjoyed, just seeing the breadth of different posts, from birthdays through to acts of kindness, through to neighbourly acts and all that sort of thing. So I've also noticed how popular it is too, and I'm wondering, why do you think people are gravitating so much to this idea of kindness? What is it about kindness that seems to be so helpful at this time?
I think because it's been so grim. I think because COVID-19 has really devastated a lot of people's lives. And the sense of human connection and kindness gives us a sense that we can get through it. So one of the things that we did early on was put a poll out and said to people, what does it feel like to do an act of kindness for another person? Because we know that people understand the impact of their acts of kindness, mostly understand the impacts of their acts of kindness on other people. But we wanted people to reflect actually and tell us, what does it feel like to do an act of kindness for another person? The responses were quite beautiful, actually. People said things like, I feel a sense of connection. I feel a sense of higher purpose. I feel like there's no us and them, there's only us. I feel like we can get through this because we're doing this together. And so that's been a real draw card. But also too, you know, there's a collective effect as well too, on people's mental well-being.
Yes.
And we did another poll recently where we said to people, has being part of the group improved your mental well-being? And there are about 2,300 people who responded. And 2,100 of them said, yeah, absolutely it has. And people tell us stories of, one of my favourite stories was from a friend of mine who has been having a lot of trouble going to work. She's had issues at work. And so she goes to work and she sits in the car park and can't bring herself to go into work. But since joining the group, what she does is she then now pulls out a phone and scrolls through the group and looks at all the acts of kindness and goes, it's going to be all right. You know, people are fundamentally kind and I can do this, I can get through it. And, you know, I think that's really incredibly important. There were a couple of other people who posted. One was someone called Cass who said, I think everyone's mental well-being was going down the toilet. And so was mine until I joined this group. And so those kinds of responses, you know, knowing that we can be there for each other, I think is important every day of the year, but particularly important now.
I've noticed that in the comments, you know, you'll get this beautiful post, but the comments underneath it are just as beautiful as people are encouraging and also supporting that, you know, it will be okay sort of feeling comes through very strongly. And it's that community of coming together to help. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and, you know, one of my favourite stories was a woman who posted that her partner had gone away for 2 weeks and she was sick and her children were sick and she was feeling miserable. And then she noticed that her children all had nits. And she knew that she had to ask her neighbour to go and get some nit cream from the chemist. And she was really embarrassed to do that. And her post, she shared a photograph of when she opened. So the neighbour went and did the shopping, knocked on her door, and then she opened the door and she shared a picture of what she saw. And the neighbour had bought wine and chocolate and food and flowers. And so this woman had posted, you know, that she'd burst into tears and this had made her day and it was going to be all right. And 12 hours later, there were over 20,000 people had responded to her post. And a lot of it was, just as you said, Phil, it was people going, you know, hang in there, honey, you're going to be all right. And we're here for you. And, you know, and I think that's the best of humanity, really, isn't it? That at a, you know, I mean, not everybody would feel comfortable telling the world that their children had head lice, but you know, it's all very real. What we're going through is very real, and we need to be able to be real with each other. Incredibly important.
I've really loved the campaigns that you've done, highlighting, you know, whether it's certain groups of people or marginalised people or professions. And I think you've got a new one starting today, Mother's Day, for new mothers. But yeah, you talk about the impact of doing an act of kindness. It's transforming people to have an act of kindness done for them. I read one of the quotes from a postie saying, I've never had anything like this in 30 years of being a postie. Why do you think for people who are receiving an act of kindness, it changes them so much? Why is it so deeply powerful?
Well, I think in a way we've sort of moved away from each other. You know, we've become, I think, a little bit individualistic. And I think what people want is a sense of community. Everybody, you know, almost everybody wants their space, but they want that connectedness. You know, I'm a country woman who lives in the city. And when I go back to the country, so the town I come from has 100,000 people, so it's not that small, but Ballarat has a really beautiful sense of community connection. And I think that's what people want. And in the city, what I notice, people try to get that from their cafes, you know, going into their local cafe and being recognised, and, you know, and the great achievement, if they know your name or they know your order, just that being able to banter with people and feel like in your local neighbourhood you're connected. You know, I think that's what people want. And, you know, there's the pursuit of money and power, and I know that we need money to survive, but, you know, I feel like before COVID-19 we'd sort of lost our way to a certain extent. You know, everybody was getting busier and we were becoming more distant and had less time for each other. And what we're noticing now with COVID-19 is people really appreciate us taking the time to notice that posties are amazing, or to notice that teachers are amazing. And a lot of people are saying to us now, how do we make this stick?
Yes.
You know, how do we make this continue beyond, you know, the lockdowns and the restrictions that we have? And I think that's a fair indication of the fact that in this really difficult, really dreadful situation, there are some things that we are doing better than we did before.
Yeah. Well, that segues beautifully into my next question, which was that idea of, you know, when we were setting up this conversation, you said a comment to me that's really stuck in my mind. This idea of the kindness pandemic is more than just scrolling through beautiful stories on Facebook. It's actually about inspiring people to do the act of kindness ourselves. And I'm just wondering, you know, what wisdom or you know, encouragement could you share with us as a church and as individuals, how we can actually participate in the kindness pandemic, you know, actually doing acts of kindness ourselves?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things, I had a look on your website and I noticed that you refer to yourself as an inclusive church. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's a wonderful start. So the message that I get from that is that you are reaching out to tell people that your first response is no, you're not allowed. You know, your first response is you are welcome. Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful first step. One of the things that we're doing is we have a focus on intersectional kindness. And so that's kindness for people who are, as you say, who were marginalised before COVID-19 and people who are newly marginalised. And I think that there are so many things that your church could do. I mean, you've got a Facebook group, haven't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so when you think about the things that your church could do, you know, maybe you could share the campaigns. You know, we're now about once a fortnight or so, and maybe you could share the campaigns and invite your members to share posts in your own Facebook page relating to the campaign. So the one at the moment is for teachers. Yeah. And, you know, teachers are doing it so tough at the moment. I mean, teachers were doing it tough before COVID-19, and now they're really struggling. They've got stressed students, they've got stressed parents, they're having to learn new technologies, and they're having to do it all remotely. And so it's incredibly difficult. And a small act of kindness for a teacher goes a really long way. And it could be just, you know, if some members of your church have children at school, just to email or call the teachers and just say thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. Or you know, if you've got a local school, even if you're not there, just send them a message and say thank you for what you do, because those small acts are incredibly powerful. And, you know, our new mothers campaign, which was going to start on Mother's Day, is unlikely to be ready for Mother's Day, because this is a campaign we've got to plan really very carefully. But one of the things that we're going to do on Mother's Day, as well as a call out for acts of kindness for mothers, is we're inviting people to tell us, to share a photograph of their grandmother. Yeah. And tell us what it is that their grandmother taught them. And the reason we're doing that is because we know the stats on older women and disadvantage. We know that before COVID-19, older women were the fastest growing group of homeless. we know they experience high rates of family violence and elder abuse. And so we want to change the ageist, sexist attitudes towards older women. And so this beautiful campaign for Mother's Day is called My Grandmother, and inviting people to tell us what their grandmother taught them. So you could invite your members to post in your Facebook group and to share things in that way to inspire each other.
Yeah. Look, I just want to thank you. It's been such a great conversation. Part of our Bible reading for today that we're looking at said that the starting point for making this world right again is the appearance of love and kindness. And I think that I want to thank you and your page and what you're doing, because I think that you're helping make that love and that kindness stronger in our communities. So I just want to thank you, and thank you so much for sharing. It's just been really inspiring.
Hey, thanks, Phil. And I think for people to be inspired is wonderful. And I think the next step is for people to do something. And people can do it from the isolation of their own homes. Make a phone call, send an email, reach out and connect with someone who can make the world a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you once again. Great having you.
All the best to you, Phil.
Thanks.
See you.